We have a true monster that we're going to be talking about today, somebody who has been prowling in Florida in the area of not just Hernando County, but in Pasco County, Pinellas County, and up around the Flagler, St. Augustine, Jacksonville area. I'm going to be walking a very fine line today because we have some very, very young victims. So I am not going to obviously talk about specifics when it comes to the victims. I'm not going to talk about specifics when it comes to the relationship of those victims with our suspect. And so I apologize in advance that I'm not going to be able to give a lot of information, particularly about our victims. But another thing I'd like to request from the public, particularly when it comes to showing this particular individual's mugshot and talking about his name, I know that people have a strong desire to try to put information out there publicly, and they may have a tendency to want to say things like, hey, so-and-so, do you think your child or your nephew or your niece could have been a victim of this monster? And we want to warn people, please don't put anything out publicly that might identify a victim or a potential victim, because we certainly don't want to further traumatize these individuals. If somebody knows this individual and may know a child that had some sort of contact with this individual, contact the parents or contact law enforcement. Please don't put it out there publicly. And all we can do on that is ask, and hopefully people will understand the gravity of the situation. So our goal today is twofold. We want to look for additional victims, obviously get the information out there, and we want to find those additional victims for two reasons. To help the prosecutors get a handle on what's going on before they move forward with final decision on charging. And last and certainly not least, for these victims that may be out there that are unidentified, we certainly want to get them the services that they are going to desperately need when you hear a little bit about what this monster did. To start off, this all started, we knew nothing about it prior to last Monday, so we've only been involved in this about a week and a half. And how it all started was a Good Samaritan, again, I don't want to talk about specifics on this particular witness, but came into contact with the suspect's phone and was able to figure out that there were some sex acts that occurred on this phone with a very young child. And that Good Samaritan brought that information into us, and we did, of course, a preliminary interview with this Good Samaritan and quickly identified a suspect. And that suspect is Nathan Holmberg. He's a white male. He was born in June, on the 22nd of June in 1989. And he was depicted in this particular, I'll put his picture up here as well. He was depicted in this particular video, engaged in a sex act with a very young child. And we knew that he had a suspended driver's license. So we were able to track him down and catch him driving and actually arrest him for driving with a suspended driver's license. He initially was very uncooperative and kind of angry with us because he thought he was being arrested for driving with a suspended driver's license. But of course, when we got him here at the office and started interviewing him and letting him know some of the information that we already had, his mood changed drastically, realizing the severity of what he's being accused of. During the initial interview, he did make some admissions, including additional victims. He would not give us how many victims, and he wouldn't give us any information on the identity of these victims. But one thing he did say, which was kind of disgusting, when we asked him if he had any child pornography downloaded on his phone, he said, "No, I make my own." Now, going back, we did a quick criminal history search and found out that this particular individual was arrested back in 2012 in the Jacksonville area, and my detective said that the arrest affidavit read almost verbatim to what they saw on the video that was brought in by the Good Samaritan. Unfortunately, there could be a lot of reasons for this. Maybe there wasn't much evidence in the case. He was arrested for capital sexual battery at the time, but there may not have been a lot of evidence. Maybe the victim and the victim's family were uncooperative, or maybe somebody dropped the ball. We really don't know, and I'm certainly not going to criticize. But unfortunately, what he ultimately ended up pleading guilty to was child abuse. He was sentenced to 5 years probation back in 2012, and he was not designated as a sexual offender, and of course not as a sexual predator. So he was not on anybody's radar as far as being this monster that we've come to know. To give a little bit of perspective, the men standing behind me have been working this for a week and a half. In addition to a couple other cases, they've been working, but we have an individual detective. I think it's important for the public to understand, because when you hear some of the details, it makes you sick to your stomach. It makes you want to cry for these victims, and it certainly enrages you, and enrage is an understatement. But my detectives who are interviewing this person have to sit knee to knee with this person and talk to them just like you'd talk to somebody about the weather. And then the individuals over here, Detective Bastolero and Detective Weston, are part of the digital forensics team. We've had digital forensics officially for probably about 8 years. They actually dabbled in it for several years prior to that, but they've been trained by the Secret Service extensively to be able to extract these digital forensics, and you'll see how much work they've done in the last week and a half. I think you'll be amazed. And so far, over the last 8 years or so, we have probably gotten, between equipment, training, overtime, and the expenses associated with the training, close to $500,000 from the Secret Service to get the training they have. And the Secret Service tells us on a very regular basis that they are some of the best in Florida, and that's why they're so quick to work with us. We also have had an Internet Crimes Against Children task force over the last couple years, and normally what they do is either find somebody who's been downloading child pornography, or occasionally do things where they try to lure somebody in who is looking for sex with a minor. So fortunately, we had the groundwork to be able to work this case very, very quickly. And as I said, I get to work with some of the best people I think that I've ever known in 40 years in law enforcement. So what we did is we immediately authored a search warrant for that cell phone. We quickly identified 6 additional victims in addition to the original victim that was brought to us by that Good Samaritan. And as late as yesterday, we've actually identified a 7th victim. So we have 8 total victims so far just on that cell phone. And all of these have occurred, we believe, since the incident in 2012 in Jacksonville. To give you a little perspective on what we found on that cell phone, is 650 pictures or videos. About 100 of those are videos of child sexual abuse material. So this individual was very prolific. Many, if not most, of those videos and pictures are voyeuristic in nature, meaning that the suspect had set up the phone or set up the video, the phone in this case, and then later on committed these acts. So the child likely did not know that he or she was being videotaped. Over 50 different videos and pictures, we believe, depicted capital sexual battery acts on 3 separate victims of those 8. Then we have over 80 that depicted lewd and lascivious contact by the suspect, meaning the suspect touched the victim in an inappropriate way, of the remaining 5. And of course, he also did that with the original 3. And the rest of those, over and above those 50 and 80 images, are obviously child sexual abuse material. So again, this person was prolific. Now, what I will tell you also is that this particular suspect obviously groomed these victims. These are very young victims. Most of his victims were between, so far what we found, between the age of 3 years old and the oldest is 10, with the majority of them being about in the middle of that, probably 4 to 8 years old. We have evidence where the victim was doing things, or the victim was doing things to the suspect. We have documentation of the suspect doing things to these victims. We have actually evidence where the suspect encouraged 2 victims to offend on each other. And actually we found instances where sometimes he had 2 or more victims that he was victimizing around the same time in different parts of a building or a house that he was actually in. Now, the scary part is we're only at the tip of the iceberg. All this we found in the last week and a half. And in that search warrant we did, we also did a search warrant of his house, and we found 30 additional devices which may or may not contain additional information. I'm told literally as we're walking in, we found some additional pictures that are not illegal but are concerning. There are young people that we have not yet identified, so he may or may not have offended on those particular individuals. But you can imagine 30 separate devices that we're going to have to go through and try to determine if there's any additional evidence or any additional victims. But again, we're really looking for the help from the media and from the public. If you know this individual and you know that he has interacted with children, please give us a call and give us the specifics on that. Now, almost immediately, we started thinking about prosecution, and I have been talking with our state attorney, Bill Gladson. He has obviously been involved, and his office has been involved from almost the first several hours of this case. And I've also personally talked with our Attorney General, Untermeyer, and he is on board. He has assigned his statewide prosecutor to help us out, and they've actually developed a task force. So I believe we've decided on 9 different detectives, correct? Yes, 9 different detectives are going to be part of that task force, and they're going to be given statewide jurisdiction in case we come up with any additional victims from this person. And so we're going to have the state attorney's office, the attorney general's office, the statewide prosecutor, and they've also assigned a liaison from the Florida Highway Patrol in case we need any logistics in transportation. And so that's where we stand right now. Now again, how can people help? First of all, be very cautious about identifying victims or potential victims publicly. We talked about that, and I can't stress that enough because we see so much on social media. People want to be helpful, and it's so easy to say, hey, I think so-and-so's a victim or whatever. We definitely don't want that. Please talk to the parents privately or contact law enforcement privately, and we'll look into it. Now, I want to give you also some information of where this person has lived. From 2001 to 2011, this person lived in Newport Richey on Bramblewood Drive. We'll get this information probably out to you via media alert as well. In 2011 and 2012, when this particular original case happened in Jacksonville, he lived on Cap Ferret Street in Jacksonville. Of course, these are registered addresses, whether he moved around. This is about the time that he was college age in Jacksonville, so again, he may or may not have been living in these places. Then 2012 to 2015, we have him on Cherry Lake Drive in Jacksonville as well. Then in 2015, he moved back to Port Richey on Hunt Club Lane. In 2018, he was living on Bramblewood Drive again in Newport Richey. And then 2018, we actually have him living in St. Petersburg at 2930 64th Avenue North in St. Petersburg. And then 2018 to 2024, he was living on 8th Avenue Southwest in Largo. We think some of the victims are in the area between Pinellas Park and Largo, probably around this same time. And then Most recently, over the last year or two, he's lived on Hexham Road here in Weeki Wachee. We also have information that this person worked as a babysitter or a nanny. We have information that he volunteered as a coach. Actually, his email address has the word coach in it. We also believe he worked volunteering at churches, or volunteered rather at churches as church counselors. So we don't have information on which churches. And then we also know that around 2006, when he was fairly young, he did work at the YMCA, and there's some rumors that maybe he was doing some inappropriate but maybe not illegal things at the YMCA. So this may go back all the way to 2006. So again, I can't stress enough how proud I am of the individuals behind me. They might be able to answer a couple questions for you. I'll be happy to answer a couple questions, but we certainly appreciate the media's helping us. As we said, we've identified at least 8 victims so far, and 3 of those we believe have been victims of capital sexual battery, and we still have 29 devices, or 30 devices out of 31 devices that we still have to go through, and Detective Vassalero and Detective Weston are the 2 that are working feverishly to get to the bottom of what we actually have. So